Hello NFCA members. First, I would like to thank the NFCA staff for allowing me to make this presentation. Let's get started. In focus items are the pursuit of calling accurate strike zones, get the call right and the procedures involved there, crewmanship, working as a crew rather than working as 3, 2, or 4 individuals. We're always reviewing fundamentals and working on fundamentals going into the year. And we're also in the pursuit of good citizenship among all of our officials. This year we have a renewed focus on verbal, nonverbal, and proper body language among the crew. So where are we now? As we get closer to our scheduled season, there are decisions being made on schedules. We're looking at protocols for COVID safety, which will come to light. We have got to be extremely flexible moving into the year and have great communication among all of our staffs. We are continuing training as if first pitches will be thrown during the regular season as always. So what might our season look like for our officials as far as COVID procedures? For consideration are these items. Have social distancing in our locker rooms. We possibly may have pre-game and post-game conversations by phone or virtually. Our plate meeting may exist with no handshakes and practicing social distancing. Our officials may be required to wear a mask over our nose and mouth. We may not touch any equipment, including the game balls. We will take substitutions from a social distancing protocol. And we possibly may tone down our verbal calls, especially around the plate and especially strike calls to protect our catchers. Umpires during the game will practice social distancing on the field. So today also I would like to share with you our 2021 mechanic changes going forward. These came about from umpire community input. We also have a mechanics committee who have vetted these possible mechanic changes. And then the new proposals that came out of the mechanics committee were tested thoroughly on the field in the month of September and October. The changes that were approved are that all officials are now jointly responsible for the infield fly rule call. The original calling official points to the sky and verbalizes infield fly, the batter is out. All others signal the call as well. And this occurs in all systems, 2-person, 3-person, and 4-person systems. Also, we had a tough look at target responsibilities at second base with the ball hit to center field and right field. The responsibility had been with the U1, who normally was outside of the diamond somewhere between second base and first base. And on hard hit balls to that area, it was almost impossible for them to get a good look at the runner at second base, possibly tagging up properly, or the possibility that they may be leaving early. So the change there is that we have all base officials on the infield, and we've given that responsibility to the umpire 3, has the runner at second base if the ball is in the air, hit the center field line to the right field fence line. U1 has the runner at second base if the ball is hit from center field to left field line. And U3 has the first rights if it's hit to dead center and verbalizes, I have the tag at second. And this applies to all base runner configurations, whether or not runner on second only, runners on second and third, runners on first and second, or bases loaded. Also, a couple other mechanics changes which won't have as big an effect for our coaches is that we do have a new signal for fan interference, and that's the left hand grasping the right wrist and pulling down slightly. This call comes after our normal dead ball call, and it's for all systems. Other things you might see our officials doing this year is there's an optional signal available giving the 1-out signal or no outs. It's initiated by the plate umpire with arms out from the waist. It also can occur after the infield fly signal across the chest. Also, we have some available stances for U1 counter-rotated or U3 rotated, and this is more of a standing position rather than hands on the knees. Also today, I would like to just share with you some things just so you know. And these are some items that have caused some confusion over the years. And I just want to lay these out there for you where you'll know going forward, going into the 2021 season. One is if a live foul ball is called foul, it cannot be changed to fair. Now, dead ball foul balls can possibly be changed to fair if we've got better information. And when I talk about a dead ball foul ball call, it's one that is maybe at the batter and it either hits the bat or it hits the hand, and we're not really sure. If we initially call a foul ball on that one, we can overturn that and call that to a hit batter. The other ones are home run balls or ground rule double scenarios, and those possibly can be changed from foul to fair if we have better and accurate information. Another item is that when a hit ball that bounds off the batter, it's a call that can be made by all officials on the field, whether or not it's 2-person, 3-person, or 4-person. So we do not have appeals for that particular call. It's called at that point by any of the officials if they see the ball off the foot. Another one is that a hit ball through the infield must be judged as playable before interference can be called. This can occur often when there's a runner on second and there's a hard hit ball up near the middle and the shortstop is trying to make a play and there's contact between the runner at second and the shortstop. The ball has to be playable before we can call interference, so that's a judgment. Another one in that same realm, if a ball ricochets off the pitcher into a base runner, that is not interference unless that is an intentional act by that runner. Another item is that straight force plays are not available for our get the call right scenarios. That is an official who has got good position, sees the play, and makes a judgment on whether or not it is an out or a safe. We do not like to give warnings or issue ejections. But questioning judgment or questioning balls and strike calls require warnings by our rule book. And also, various inappropriate behaviors require ejections. We really do just prefer conversations. So we look forward to working with you in 2021 to just bring that level down. And I know the will to win sometimes causes us to get extremely excited, and we understand that, and we will allow that to happen. But at the end of the day, we really would just like to have conversations. All right, let's talk about the strike zone. Calling balls and strikes have always been a focus, so I want to take a deep dive into our mission. What I have come to find out is that officials and coaches and players really don't understand exactly what the strike zone is. And when we have a rule book that specifies a strike zone, our job as officials is to call it accurately, not to be aggressive, not to take, certain counts and do something different, not to look at the scoreboard and do something different. It is our job as officials to pursue calling an accurate strike zone. Hello folks, Hyde here, National Coordinator of Officials for NCAA Softball. What I'd like to do today is take a deep dive into the strike zone. So let's get started. Our world revolves around one thing on the softball diamond. We're talking about home plate. If you look at home plate is a white area up here with a dark border. The actual plate is the white area. It's 17 inches wide. It comes back 8.5 inches, and then it comes back to a point 12 inches on either side. That's what our world revolves around for the strike zone. The other thing associated with it is our softball. And our softball obviously is round, but it's 3.8 inches wide. So when you look at the actual strike zone, and you look at the 17-inch width, and you look at an edge catching the edge here, we actually add almost 4 inches to either side. It's got a touch on either side of the zone. Now, it doesn't have to go through the entire plate. It's just got to touch an edge. So if we've got a right-handed pitcher that's throwing a hook on the outside, if that ball is coming in spinning
right here at the front of the plate, it nicks the white right here, and then it continues this way. That's all we're looking for, is any part of the plate, and the ball catches any part of the plate on either side. Same thing with the lefty, coming in right here and catching this outside. Let's say that maybe the lefty is throwing an outside backdoor type curveball, and it's coming in and it misses the front part right here, but it continues to move and it catches this little piece right here. That's also a strike. So it's any part of the depth on the horizontal zone. So let's talk about the river, because that's always been something that our talent and everybody talks about, our balls in the river. Part of the river is a strike. The river is actually 6 inches wide. So if you look at the 3.82 inches, that's going to touch the edge of the plate somewhere through here. But this other 2.2 inches, when it's off the plate and touching the edge of the inside batter's box, that is not a strike. So we have 3.82 inches of the river that becomes a strike, and the other 2.2 inches is not a strike. Okay, so now that we've defined the horizontal zone, let's talk about the vertical zone. The vertical zone is variable for every hitter. There is no body that's exactly the same. Some people may have longer legs, some people may have a longer torso. But what we have to do is we have to establish those points in the vertical zone for every hitter and visualize that as an umpire. Then we have to see the pitch, see if that ball actually came through the vertical zone, through the depth of the plate, from the front of the plate to the back of the plate. So let's talk about the way our rule book describes a natural batting stance. So it's a slight knee bend and it's a slight waist bend. So basically this right here is what we use to establish the vertical zone for every hitter, based on their build and their size. So we've got the top of the knee, top of the ball at the top of the knee, so that means the bottom of the ball can be 3.8 inches below the top of the knee. The upper part of the zone is the sternum area right here. So the ball has to be completely under the sternum in a natural batting stance. So here. So it has to stay under it through the depth of the zone. All right, so let's also talk about where the hitter is in the batter's box. So if the hitter is in the very back of the batter's box, we've got a 7-foot batter's box. We've got 4 feet off the middle of the plate forward and 3 feet off the middle of the plate backwards. So if they're in the very back of the batter's box, when that pitch comes in, does it have to clip the top of her knee back here? Is that where we're establishing it? Or if we're up in the very front of the box and we're here, if it touches the top of the knee out here and then falls off near the plate, is that where we establish the strike zone? No. We visualize the strike zone and the points through the depth of the plate at the plate. The pitcher is always pitching to the plate and not the hitter. In our rule book, it does not say that the ball has to be caught well. So if the ball comes through the strike zone and the catcher drops it, or it clanks out of her mitt, or she's set up for an inside pitch and all of a sudden the pitch comes on the outside but comes through the strike zone, we're working hard as officials. Even though that wasn't where the placement of the ball was meant to be, it did come through the strike zone, and we're trying to call that a strike. It's just like when they set up on the inside part and the pitch looks really, really good, but they miss it by a couple of inches and it actually doesn't come to the strike zone. Everybody in the park thinks that's a strike, but we know it did not touch the white, so we are going to ball that pitch.
You know, when we boil it all down, our program tenets are: we want to umpire the games as a team of officials. We're not on the scoreboard, but we are competing in every pitch of every inning of every game to umpire the game as a team, not as individuals. We always work on fundamentals, then fundamentals, and more fundamentals. We are in a pursuit to get the calls right. We are pursuing accurate strike zones with our ball strike calls. We have consistent mechanics across the country that we can plug any officials in, and we can work our mechanics properly and effectively, and we are pursuing extensive verbal communication among our crews to help us with teamwork. Our foundation for all of our umpire training and communication is through the ARBITER website and the ARBITER home plate. We give guidance to the officials all year, have clinics, do tests, have weekly guidance as the season goes on. This is open to all coaches and administrators. We want to welcome and encourage to sign up. We want transparency among y'all. We want y'all to know what we're doing, and we want to know what you guys are doing. Our registration opens December 1st and it's free. Please, please join. Thank you for viewing this presentation. And again, thanks to the NFCA staff for allowing me to be with you today. Have a great season.
Hello, NFCA members. This is Vicki Van Kleeck, NCAA softball rules editor, and I'd like to review a few rules with you today. Two of our major rule changes dealt with pitching. The first, dealing with the pitching position. In the past, the pitcher had to have both feet in contact with the pitcher's plate. The change that we made last year was that the stride foot could be on or behind the pitcher's plate as far back as she wants it to be. However, once she initially sets the toe of the stride foot, she cannot step back any further to increase the distance behind the pitcher's plate. Also, this stride foot cannot move in any direction. She can't move it backward, forward, sideways, or off the ground. So the first movement of the stride foot is the forward step that she takes when the pitching motion starts. And just to review, she needs to be in the proper pitching position that we just reviewed before she can take the signal. Taking the signal, that's another major change that we instituted last year. Let's talk about that. So when she's in the pitching position and taking the signal, she has to take a signal or appear to take a signal. The signal does not have to come from the catcher. Let's talk about a few clarifications on this. Taking the signal from behind the pitcher's plate from her signal armband or the catcher is illegal since she is not in the pitching position. This would be an illegal pitch. Second clarification is that a coach may give a visual or verbal signal while the pitcher is not in the pitching position. However, when the pitcher gets onto the pitcher's plate in the pitching position, she must look at her signal armband or the catcher to take or appear to take the signal. The pitcher may not simply step onto the pitching position, put her hands together, and start the pitching motion. So let's talk about the phrase, appear to take the signal. What do we mean by that? In order to explain it, I came up with the terminology that there must be timing consistent with the time that it would take to get the signal from the catcher or from her armband. So that is what we mean by appear to take the signal. If she fails to allow for this timing when she steps into the pitching position, then it will be an illegal pitch. The third clarification, taking a defensive signal from a catcher or a coach prior to stepping onto the pitcher's plate is okay. She can do that. However, she cannot look at her signal armband until she is in the pitching position. So if your defensive signals are on the armband, she can't look at it until she's in the pitching position. If she does, it would also be an illegal pitch. Let's talk about the new rule that's going to be enforced this year. It's 8.6 on the reentry. The NCAA Committee on Competitive Safeguards and Medical Aspects of Sports recommended a rule change to allow a player to be removed from the game to be evaluated for a concussion without being disqualified. This is obviously something very new to our sport. We've never had a player go out and come back in without being charged as a substitution, but it will be this way this year for the purpose of evaluating a player for concussion. Our rules, as they are currently written, discourage or impede us from the timely reporting or evaluation of a possible concussion. Because if she goes out, by the way our rules are written now for concussion evaluation, and somebody comes in, we're going to have to charge both of them with substitution. So we are trying to be consistent with what other sports rules committees have proposed. Obviously, they don't have the same type of reentry and substitution rules that we have. Our current rules state that any of the starting players, including a DP and a flex, can be withdrawn and re-entered once, so long as they occupy the same batting spot in the order. Our rules state that the starting player and their substitute may not be in the lineup at the same time. Our current rules also state that a substitute who is withdrawn may not re-enter the game. This is the new addition that's coming in this year, 8.6.2. A player who shows signs or symptoms or behaviors that are consistent with concussion, you can see Appendix H for that, must be immediately removed and receive appropriate medical evaluation. The player is not going to be able to return until she is cleared by the appropriate medical personnel, which in most cases is going to be your athletic trainer. The umpires are going to be aware of the nature of the contact, and obviously the athletic trainers will as well. That may lead to this issue of does she need to be evaluated for concussion. So we're going to leave that in the hands of the athletic trainer. That's not going to be for the umpires to decide, but they will know if the situation warrants this. So in 8.6.2.1, what are we going to do after we take the player out to be evaluated, whether she's a starter or a substitute? She can be replaced by any eligible player who has not yet participated in the game. And I'm going to refer to this person in future language as a temporary replacement player. If the injured player is cleared by the trainer to resume participation, she goes back into her lineup spot. The temporary replacement player comes out, and she can again participate in the game as a substitute, but only in that same lineup spot. So the movement of the player to be evaluated and the movement of the temporary replacement player are not considered a substitution. Now, smaller squads, based on injuries, based on division, whatever. If a team has no remaining eligible player, a starter or a substitute who has previously participated in the game may go in and be the temporary replacement player for the injured player. They have nobody else on the bench, so we can take a starter or a substitute who've already been in the game and put them in to replace the player to be evaluated for concussion. There's one exception to this. If a player has been ejected, she isn't eligible to participate in the game any further. She is not eligible to replace the injured player. The last thing I want to talk about is video review. That was supposed to be an experimental rule for last year, but unfortunately our season was cut short by the pandemic. It will be an experimental rule for 2021, but we did spend a fair amount of time this summer adding additional scenarios to the review protocol. This is posted on Arbiter for your review, and we'll have further discussion with conferences who are intending to use video review in their conference tournaments. The last thing I want to talk to you about, coaches, is to remind you to register for Arbiter. Now, this is not Arbiter, your signing mechanism. This is Arbiter Central Hub softball home plate. And you'll see the address there, sup.arbitersports.com. You have to register each year. Even I have to register each year. So go into there, hit the registration button, click on it, fill out your information. It's free to all head coaches. Why is this important? Because it's a resource for all the information that gets posted during the season. All the interpretations, clarifications. We show video review of actual game plays. We comment on whether, the call was accurate or not and what we could have done to get the right call. We use it for educating our umpires during the course of the season, but I think it would be very educational for coaches as well. So just very important that you go in there and register for Arbiter as soon as you possibly can. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. As always, you can reach me by email. You can reach me by cell phone. That information is located in the front of your rules book. So it's been great to talk to you. I look forward to all of us being back on the field in 2021, and I look forward to seeing everybody in person at next year's convention. Have a great season.